Continuing on in James today, and we're in James 1, 5 through 8, and I will begin by reading that passage. If any of you lacks wisdom, let him ask God, who gives generously to all without reproach, and it will be given him. But let him ask in faith, with no doubting. For the one who doubts is like a wave of the sea that is driven and tossed by the wind. For that person must not suppose that he will receive anything from the Lord. He is a double-minded man, unstable in all his ways. Last time we looked at James, we looked at the concept and importance of wisdom as seeing the world as God sees it, and then living skillfully with the proper knowledge and vision of the world. And this is contrasted in James, this wisdom, which he calls wisdom from above, later in the letter, is contrasted with the wisdom of earth, which is a skillful living in the world, but not one that sees the world properly. And so this is an important concept in James, and he recognizes the fact that we grow in wisdom and we lack it. And so we need to ask of God, because that is where wisdom, true wisdom, will come from. And so today we want to move to the phrase, let him ask of God who gives generously to all without reproach. And I want to sort of break that down into three parts: the asking, the generosity, and then the without reproach. Asking, it's important to James. I mean, he's going to revisit the idea of asking things from God. He'll say later, right, that you do not have because you do not ask. And then again, he's going to say that we ask and we don't get because we ask him properly. So asking and asking properly is an important thing for James, enough for him to address it on multiple occasions. Now, many of us have a problem asking. I know I, for one, do. I'm not good about asking, especially asking for help, asking for people to assist me, to at times give me things that I need. And there are many reasons why asking is uncomfortable and difficult. I usually think that the reason I don't like asking is I don't want to impose on other people, and I know that they've all got lots going on in their lives, and I don't want them to have to worry about me and put extra strain in their life. And so I just deal with things on my own. And some of that I think is true. I think that's true. I think for a lot of us, one of the real reasons why we have trouble asking is when I have to ask someone to help me, part of that asking is an admission that I can't do it myself. It means that I need someone else's help, that I'm not sufficient on my own to achieve what needs to be achieved. And so there's a humbling that takes place when I have to admit that and then ask for someone else's help. Asking puts us in especially asking for something we don't have or asking for help in something, puts us in the position of being a supplicant. But of course, this is exactly where we should be before God, acknowledging our own inabilities and insufficiencies before him, recognizing that true sufficiency comes from him, and in fact that we were made to receive what we need from him. We were not made simply to be able to do everything on our own, but to live in that perfect concord with God in which we receive life and truth and health from him. And so asking is a healthy and good place to be, but it's something we really struggle with. So James has to tell us, ask of God. And then some part of that I think would be asking of each other as well. He goes on to say that God gives generously. And I want to spend a little bit of time with this because getting the idea of what James I think is saying here will make sense of what we'll look at in the next couple times after today. The Greek, when it says that God gives generously, the Greek term for generously there is haplos. And it's the only time it's an adverb. It's the only time this adverb is used in the New Testament. Its adjectival form, haplous, is used a couple times, so it's not an extremely common word. And the root meaning of haplous is single, undivided, simple. It's the root meaning of the term. Here it is, I think, properly translated generously, but it has, and there are other words that James could have used to mean generously or generous, but he chose this one, which has his root meaning of single or undivided. Its antonym, of course, would be diplus, which means double, right? Which we'll see, I think, an important sort of distinction when we get to how we ask, when the doubleness, right? In this passage in James 1, haplos is variously translated here as generously, liberally, freely, with open hand, and I think those are all fine translations. But we have to keep in mind, I think, to get what James is saying, the idea of singleness. One commentator says what James is pushing at here is God gives in sort of an undivided, unwavering intent. He's single-minded in how he gives. He does not give duplicitously, right? To be duplicitous means it has the root of double, right? Doubly in the sense of with some other sort of nefarious intent behind. He has a single-minded, undivided, unwavering intent in giving us what is good and right and healthy and moving us towards completion and perfection as he gives us what he wants to give us. Luke 11:34 uses the same term, or haplus, right here. When it says, your eye is the lamp of your body. When your eye is healthy, your whole body is full of light. When your eye is healthy, the term for healthy there is haplus there. When your eye is single, in fact, in the Old King James, it is translated that way, when your eye is single. When your eye is undivided, when it has singleness of focus, then your whole body is full of life. Your whole body is healthy. So I'm stressing the aspect of singleness here because it provides an important contrast to us in verse number 8 that we'll get to, not today, but later down the road, in which he says we are double-minded. So God's manner of giving is contrasted with our manner of asking in these few verses here. James goes on to say that God gives without rebuking us or without finding fault or without mocking us. He is generous, he is single-minded, and he's gentle in his manner of giving. The book of Sirach, an apocryphal work of Jewish wisdom literature, which James would be drawing on for his letter, because he's very much working in this Jewish wisdom lit tradition. So Sirach chapter number 20, verses 14 and 15 say this: a fool's gift will profit you nothing, for he has many eyes instead of one. He gives little and upbraids much. He gives little and upbraids much. God's giving here is contrasted with the fool's gift from Sirach chapter number 20. Douglas Moo, a commentator who points out this connection between Sirach and James, he says, in contrast, God gives us with one eye. He gives with one eye, not many, like the fool, singly, simply, and without finding fault. He does not reprimand us for our past failures or remind us endlessly of the value of the gifts that he gives. He gives simply, he gives generously, he gives openly, and he does not reprimand with the giving. He's not shocked that you lack wisdom. and need some. He's happy that you come as a supplicant, asking of those things you need, and he gives singly, open-minded or open-handedly. So this should encourage us, I think, to become supplicants, to become the importunate beggar at times, to come boldly before God, admitting our needs and seeking him, remembering indeed that he gives single-mindedly. His first and greatest goal is to give us into what is healthy for us and right for us, and to lead us to completion, to perfection in him. We're going to stop here. These next couple of sessions will build on this, and we'll get more of it. But this seems to be a good place to stop, remembering or seeing how God gives. And we'll turn next time to how we ask, which is contrasted with how God gives. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit.
Amen.